Hey mamas, and welcome to the Entering Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Marie Bilger, a wife, mom of two, VBAC mama, and doula. Join us every episode to learn from professionals, special guests, and moms just like you, ensuring that you know what you need to know and discover things that you didn't know before. I believe in you. Let's doula this, and let's navigate the transition of entering motherhood together. In this episode, we talk with Taylor, who is a holistic doula, and we discuss preparing for those final weeks of pregnancy, especially if you're planning a home birth. Taylor is actually one of the doulas that will be attending our third birth, and I'm so excited for her to be here. And in this episode, she shares practical tips on organizing your supplies, creating a calm birth space, and prioritizing your comfort for birth. She dives into mental preparation, the idea of letting go of control, and also ways that we can be boosting our oxytocin through rest and connection. The conversation really blends emotional support with actionable advice, highlighting the value of trusting your body, setting boundaries, and building a supportive environment for a positive and empowered birth experience. If you are preparing for a home birth yourself, this is going to be a great episode to listen in on. And so with that, let's get the episode started. Hello, and welcome to Entering Motherhood. I'm super excited and happy to have you here. But for those of the listeners that do not know you, how about you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Sarah. My name is Taylor. I am a mom, first and foremost, but I'm also an online educator and a holistic doula. So I actually own a home birth doula agency here in South Carolina called Greenville Home Birth Doulas, and that has been such a joy. And then I also have a podcast of my own called Holistic Pregnancy, and I also have some online courses and do some virtual coaching, things like that, over at Nested and Nourished. So that's where you could find me. That would be my business name is Nested and Nourished. But overall, I'm just a mom who has had 2 home births herself and just really have a passion for educating other moms and helping them have the home birth that they want.
Yes. And this is really exciting because Taylor is one of my doulas. Also, one, because I feel like I'm building this whole big elaborate team, but it's like once you know so much, it's like why not like bring
Yeah, don't
everybody on
stop.
board? And yeah. Especially because this is probably our last. I say that, but you never know, right?
Yeah, right.
Cool. So we are specifically talking about home birth today. That is your jam. That is, what you focus on and really kind of go into. But let's kind of narrow it down into preparing for those last few weeks specifically. So what can you kind of tell somebody who is already on board? They're already, planning their home birth and they're kind of going through that checklist of, do I have everything together? What is my final weeks looking like? Where should my mindset be? And how can we also just be physically preparing?
Yeah. So this is a big one. There's a lot going on here and it's very nuanced. And it seems like to most people, like if we have the space set up and if we have like the checklist down and we're like, okay, we're ready. Where's the baby? And then the baby doesn't come. And it's because there's a lot more actually going on in our body and in our brains in order to get ready for the baby to be here, right? So I feel like it's really important to start with giving this overall picture of what the final weeks look like. So I think most of us kind of have this idea that, we're on a 40-week timeline. And as the final weeks start to close in, we have to make sure our birth space is ready. We're, on maternity leave. Like now it's time for a baby. And it's really not that simple. There's a lot that goes into the hormonal progression leading up to birth and really the mind-body connection, which I know sounds a little bit woo-woo. So if you're feeling that way, just hang with me because I promise this is like science. So imagine like you are full term and you're like, is this it? Every day you feel like a little twinge or like a little contraction. You're like, am I going to have the baby today? And you're getting all these texts like, is there a baby here yet? And there's just like this external pressure, maybe also internal pressure from you, feeling like, okay, like just watching the clock. And I want you to think about it like watching water boil, right? Or watching paint dry. It's not something that goes any faster when you watch it. And actually, labor really doesn't like to be watched. So at first, I just want to kind of talk about the hormonal progression of what's happening behind the scenes that you might not understand is going on in your body. Because your body, believe it or not, is actually already working. Like even if you're not in labor or you're not having contractions, labor doesn't just start, right? It is a process. It's a progression. So first, let's just talk about the hormones. So there's a few different things happening in your body at this point. So you have all probably heard of oxytocin, right? The love hormone, the connection hormone. This is building slowly throughout the end of your pregnancy, and it's going to like peak during your birth, right? And during that immediate postpartum, and you feel all this love and you forget all of the intensity, and like it is already building. So that is building through affection, rest, safety, intimacy. All of those things are necessary for your labor to start. And that's why stress or fear can stall your labor or prevent your labor from starting, because it's literally blocking the flow of oxytocin. It is in like complete opposition with the oxytocin in your brain. And then there's also the relaxin in your body. So that's more of like on the physical side. That's why your body is so loose and lax, and that's how you're stretching and everything's opening. So this is sort of like a melting hormone that makes everything feel really wobbly and loose, and sometimes can cause some of those like discomforts, but it's also allowing your body to stretch so that you can release a baby from it, right? And then you have your progesterone and your estrogen, and those are kind of in a balance all throughout pregnancy, and that balance is changing towards the end. So the progesterone will start to decline and that estrogen will start to rise, stimulating some of those uterine contractions and that activity and more oxytocin receptors. And then there's prostaglandins. This is the thing that helps thin your cervix. So you might have heard about prostaglandins or wondering what prostaglandins are. This is released from babies' movements. It's also released from sex or semen, which is why sometimes people will tell you, like, if you want your baby to come, just like have a bunch of sex. It's not that simple. Also, it's just going to cause a lot of contractions. So you might not love that, but it is helping ripen the cervix. That's what the prostaglandins are. And then you have cortisol and adrenaline. And these are sort of painted in a negative light, especially at the end of pregnancy. They are really helpful when you're actually in labor sometimes towards the end to get the baby out, but it's not necessarily something that we want to be experiencing in those final weeks. So that is things that are maybe heightening your senses, making you really aware, or if you're really maybe overthinking or stressing about your labor, you're going to have that peak in cortisol, that peak in adrenaline. And like I said, those things have a place. When labor starts, mom and baby are both releasing those bursts right before labor. And when you're pushing, you'll get a surge of adrenaline to help you like really focus in. But what's happening in those weeks before labor is we really want to drive down the adrenaline and the cortisol and drive up the oxytocin. So how do we do that? There's a lot of ways we can do that. And there's the mental piece, and there's also the physical piece in preparing our body. So as you are getting ready, as your body's getting ready, your baby's also getting ready. Their lungs are finishing developing, your cervix is softening, even if you're not dilating. And I just want to make a note that, like, first of all, there's no reason really to be checking your cervix. None of that information you're getting before you actually go into labor is going to tell you anything. Honestly, it doesn't really tell you anything in labor either, but that's like a whole nother story. But your body's kind of warming up. So you might be feeling these contractions even more intense than a normal like Braxton Hicks. Maybe you've been feeling Braxton Hicks since like 20, 30 weeks, right? But now you're like 38 weeks or so, and you're like, oof, I'm having these contractions like every day, and they're really uncomfortable. Am I going to have a baby today? And the answer is probably no, because if you're going to have a baby, you're probably going to know pretty quickly that it's like the real deal. But it is kind of disheartening and frustrating when you're having these contractions all the time and you're like, oh, is something wrong? Why is this happening? And your body really is just warming up. And it could be that your baby's like in a slightly wonky position, your body wants to move them. It could just be that you're kind of doing some pre-labor work, which could shorten your active labor. So that's a great thing. So welcome those contractions, as annoying as they might be. Take a bath, do some things to relax. If you're feeling uncomfortable, stay hydrated. But just know that those are all good things and your body's already working and getting ready. First, let's sort of talk about preparing your mind. Before we get into the space, I want to make an important note here that around the time if you're working up until labor or you're working full time during your pregnancy, about the time you stop working and you kind of like cocoon into your little nesting hole waiting for baby, I want you to shift your mindset from doing to allowing. So at some point in pregnancy, I tell all of my clients, like, stop reading the books. Stop listening to stuff. Stop trying to learn. Finish up your childbirth ed, like finish up your work. Have no responsibilities. Because now at this point, if you have things to do and you're constantly like, go, 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 and I've got to do this and I've got to do that, your brain is in a state of heightened cortisol, right? You are in a state of stress. You're in a state of focus where you are doing things. And you have to be able to make that shift to allowing things to happen to you and in your body in order to really be in a place to welcome labor, right? Now, sometimes people go into labor unexpectedly and they're like, whoa, I was not ready. I'm still working, or maybe you're in preterm labor or whatever. But that's not really the common story. Normally, it is, I see a mom who's like, I'm just going to work until I go into labor. And then surprise, surprise, they go to 42 weeks and they're like, what happened? And I'm like, you never stopped. Your brain is just going and expecting and doing. And you have to be able to step back and allow for whatever is going to happen. And you can call this surrender. You can, whatever you want to call it, you have to shift your mindset. And that's really hard for people that are hyper productive. I'm one of those people. I had a really hard time turning my brain off. Even when I stopped working, I still was thinking, like, what can I do in my home? What can I do? Like, I have to have all the laundry done. I have to have all the food prepped. I have to have, whatever. And kind of putting myself on this timeline of like, well, I have to do all this by this date because that's when my baby's going to be here. And then that date rolls around and it's like crickets. And you're like, but what now? And especially in a culture where I feel like we are uncomfortable with boredom, we're uncomfortable with silence, and we are uncomfortable with just being, it is a discipline to shift your mindset from doing to being, or doing to allowing. So things that you can do practically to kind of help your body shift into this mindset is you can do mindfulness or breath work, visualization, things like sitting down with a journal. If you're not great at meditation, I am not. I am not a girl who meditates. I don't love it. I'm a very productive, like high-strung person. So meditating for me looks like sitting down with a journal, giving yourself some questions like, how do I envision my birth? And trying to think through like, okay, when I close my eyes and I think about my birth, whether you've had a baby 5 times or whether this is your first pregnancy, just trying to imagine like, where do I see myself in my room? Where do I see myself birthing in water? Do I see myself laboring, like swaying with my husband? How am I imagining birth will be? And this is not to create a plan for your birth. This is just to put your body and your mind in that scenario so that you can start to begin connecting your brain and your body. So your body can feel that relaxed state when you think about those things, right? So it could be, how do I want to feel during my labor? So maybe your birth doesn't go anything like you thought it would, but there's a certain theme throughout your birth. Like, I want to feel peaceful, or I want to feel in control, autonomous. I want to feel like supported, like I have everybody here for me, everybody's supporting me. Or maybe you think, I want to feel powerful, like I'm going to do this on my own. I only want my husband there, or whatever. So think through how you want to feel. And I would really encourage you to like write these things down on paper, because it's really hard sometimes to check out and mull over these things, meditate, whatever you want to call them, without getting distracted and kind of letting your brain go to your to-do list or whatever. So I would really encourage you to write some questions down and then sit down alone for an hour or two every day or whenever you can. Ideally in the last, few weeks of pregnancy, once you are done with your physical responsibilities, you'll have some of this like white space to sit around and dream and think and rest. So I would really encourage you to do that. And then maybe as you're doing that, listening to your birth playlist or doing some like stretches that feel good to you and kind of just letting your nervous system downshift. Also, side note, if you don't see a prenatal chiropractor or are doing any kind of body work to help with your nervous system, I highly recommend it just because that's sort of like a physical thing that can support your nervous system. Other things that you're going to want to do is anything basically that's going to boost that oxytocin. So I would say spend time with your husband. Hopefully that's bringing you joy, right? Your husband or your birth partner, whoever that person is that you made this baby with. Ideally, you're going to want to hang out with them and celebrate this time. Maybe it's just the two of you for the last time, or maybe you have other kids, but your family dynamic is never going to look like this again. So do things that bring you joy. Go on dates, even if it's like going to the movies or going to the park for a walk or doing something silly at home. Like my husband and I really, before my daughter was born, we really loved Marvel movies. We still do, but we had a lot more time before our first baby was born to sit and watch movies together. So we would make popcorn or make homemade pizza and watch a movie every night. And that was just like our way to like connect together and also just like take our mind off of like all of the people being like, when's your baby going to be here? And what's going to happen when I'm postpartum? And I have no idea what to expect. And just like really find those things that bring you joy, even if they are so little. The goal here is love, oxytocin, connection. That is not only going to bring on labor, but it's going to just put you in a mindset that you feel supported, you feel prepared, right? Another thing you can do if you are especially going over your due date or you're feeling a lot of that outside pressure is you can write these out or rehearse them mentally, but start coming up with some like responses to the "is the baby here yet?" text that you're going to get, because this is really annoying. Like it's very annoying when you get to the point where you're like, well, I don't know. I wish the baby was here and they're not. Like having somebody else tell you, oh, is your baby here yet? Is there a baby? Can get really emotionally taxing. So I would say something like, the baby's not here and I will let you know when they are. We would like some privacy during this time to just, finish the last things that we need to finish or whatever. But rest assured, you will know when the baby's here. Respectfully, please stop asking. It's
Yeah.
okay to say things like that because it really is just like, one more thing kind of putting doubt in your mind, like, oh, well, why isn't my baby here? And, hopefully if you're you're having a home birth, you're having a home birth midwife do your care, you're not getting pressured to induce, right? But you can face a lot of that internal pressure from yourself of like, oh, should I do something to make the baby come? Spoiler, the answer is no, you shouldn't do anything to make the baby come. If there's no medical reason, a few more days is going to be good for them. It's not going to hurt anything. But yeah, just rehearse those kind of responses so that you don't feel overwhelmed. And then, of course, there's like the physical things you can be doing, right? So gentle daily movement, stretching, yoga, whatever feels good to your body. I'm a big proponent of intuitive movement. I don't like to prescribe movement like go do this every day, like go curb walk and go, make sure you do child's pose for 30, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There are some prescribed movements that I think are really helpful, like the spinning babies 3 balances. I always encourage moms to do, and mostly the forward leaning inversion and side lying release. And the reason for those things is that the forward leaning inversion is going to help get baby out of the pelvis so that they can resituate in just the right position. Sometimes babies are, just because they're head down doesn't mean they're in the ideal position. They could be posterior. They could be anterior and seeming like they're in the right position, but they might be a little asynclitic, meaning their head is tilted just a little bit, which doesn't seem like a big deal until you're in labor. And then it's just making your labor longer, or it's giving you prodromal labor or whatever. So I do love spinning babies, and I also love the Miles circuit. Neither of these things are going to start your labor. Like, these are not induction methods. These are things that you can do to relax your body, The side lying release, like I mentioned a minute ago with spinning babies, is to help release the psoas. So that's just going to make a little bit more space in your pelvis. It's going to make you feel more comfortable. It's going to help your baby move easier. And then when labor does start, there's not so much restriction, right? So those spinning babies exercises and the Miles circuit are just great ways to prepare, not induce, if that makes sense. So there's a difference between preparing for labor and inducing your labor. We don't want to induce if there's no medical reason, but preparing is never hurtful. It's actually very helpful. And if anything, or if nothing else, if you're doing the Miles circuit at night before you go to bed, it's a great time to sit and listen to your birth playlist because these are long holds, like 30 minutes in each position. That's a great time to do your meditating or thinking or talking with your partner and having those real, open, honest conversations, relaxing, watching TV together, listening to your birth playlist. Those are all really helpful to do at night when naturally your body's going to start to downshift anyways. Now, there are some things you could do like herbally to support your body going to labor, right? We've heard of like red raspberry leaf tea. That's a uterine tonic. You could eat dates if you want to ripen your cervix. I kind of think dates are like pointless, honestly. I think there are a lot of sugar right at the end of pregnancy. And actually, if your blood sugar is higher during the end of pregnancy, your baby's going to stay in longer. So if you want your baby to come, just like go low carb for a little bit and then maybe your baby will come. So I think dates kind of like the high sugar kind of outweighs the benefit in my opinion. But if you feel like they're helpful or maybe you did it in another pregnancy, go for it. If you like dates, go for it. If you don't like dates, don't eat them. You don't have to do that. I would recommend red raspberry leaf tea though, even if you're not a tea drinker. It's just nothing but beneficial. So I personally love to drink it with like honey and coconut milk, even when I'm not pregnant. So do lots of, that, or maybe your Nora tea or Nora herbal infusions are great. There's also a gentle birth tincture that a lot of people like to start around like 35 weeks. And you take that from weeks 35 to 40. And it has several herbs in it that are uterine tonics as well. There's a version with blue cohosh, which is a bit controversial. So if you're not comfortable with that, there is another version they make without blue cohosh. And I personally took it and my labor was an hour and a half. I don't know that it was just from that, but I have seen a lot of clients have success with very short active labor phases who have taken that from 35 weeks on. Even people that have only taken it from 37, 38 weeks on, it really does seem to make a difference. So if you have a history of precipitous births or fast labors, I would probably not take it. Like I would not take it if we have another baby. I don't want it going any quicker than that. But maybe you had a long labor with your first, or maybe this is your first baby. If it's your first baby, I would recommend it. It does seem to shorten the length of a lot of the first time labors that I have been a part of or been a doula for. Again, it could all be anecdotal. It could be just a coincidence, but I really do feel like it's helpful. So that's something that you can look into if you want to. But I would encourage you, again, that's just preparing, not inducing. I would really avoid the natural induction rabbit hole because the stress of that and trying to tell your body when to have a baby is going to kill that oxytocin faster than anything else. So unless you are faced with a situation where you're like, it's either this or the hospital, then I would say try to induce your labor at home. But if not, I promise it's only going to be like a few more days. It's really not that far away, or maybe a few more weeks. Don't put your body under any more unnecessary stress. Acupuncture is another thing I'll just mention real quick that is great for preparing, not inducing. There are ways I think of inducing with acupuncture, but I would use it more as a way to support your nervous system and your body.
Yeah, I think right now, specifically, the timeline is the biggest thing for me right now, because with our first, it was, first-time parents always go over their due dates. And so, I had this expectation of I'm for sure making it to 40 weeks. So I didn't have that waiting timeline in my head. And then she ended up coming at 39 weeks. And then our son never made it to 40 weeks either. He was a day short. But at that point, we were in this, we're not telling people the due date, because we were getting a lot of that, pushback and talk of, well, like, where's baby? And like, when is baby coming? And then when you don't give them a due date, it's even more, can you remind me again? Like, when is baby coming? Or, oh, like, do you have like a better idea of like when baby is coming? And like now, even this time around, it's like the same deal. It's like, for whatever reason, people want to know specifically when your baby's coming. And knowing what I know and like doing the work that we do, there isn't an exact science to it. There, like, sure, okay, like we can estimate that 40 weeks and you can have, some sort of assumption, but that's all it is. Now, though, I'm in this mindset of like, baby can come any day. And
Mhm.
so, like you were saying, like every little like twinge or feeling or sensation, and I'm like, well, it's a little too soon, like I don't want baby to come yet, or like, oh, like I have this long list of stuff to do before baby comes. And so it is like one of those things where with our first, I feel like I was pretty in that like allowing state. Like I was like, okay, like I was still working,
Mhm.
but I was wrapping up with projects. They were aware that my due date was approaching. They were kind of giving me less and less work. And I was just kind of waiting around. And I remember it was like a Friday afternoon and I was leaving work. And somebody was like, I don't think we're going to see you on Monday. And I was like, I'm only 39 weeks. Like, you'll see me. Like, I'll be back here. And sure enough, she came that like Sunday into Monday. And I was, I was like, well, like, I guess like we're having a baby. And so like, it's one of those like, yeah, like you can still have this to-do list and baby comes. But like you were saying too, like, unless you're in that relaxed sort of like state and mindset, most of the time, like you are kind of prolonging that until you can relax and settle. And then with our second, I was still like working up until my due date, but I was just, again, like offloaded on projects, sitting around. I was working at home that time and taking naps over lunch and just relaxing. Like our daughter was in full-time daycare. So like I had a lot of downtime. And so like now with this one, it's like, okay, like I'm wrapped up with clients, like I'm still doing some podcasting, but like for the most part, if baby came, like it would be fine. But also I have like a list of stuff that I still want to get done or prepare. And so like that's what I want to talk about too, like how home birth, like like when you're going to the hospital, everybody's like, pack your hospital bag, like you have to have your hospital bag by like 36, 37 weeks. And it's like, okay, well, if we're not leaving, what are we quote unquote packing? And then are we still packing a bag if like, worst case scenario, like we do have to transfer or whatever it might be. So like what can you kind of say to that as far as like things to have on hand and the switch or the jump from a hospital birth to a home birth and how that really differs as far as like getting items together?
Yes, I have a lot of thoughts on this. The first thing that I wanna say is there will always be things to do, right? Like you said, you're done with your clients, you're done with your big stuff, but you still have a list of things that you'd like to do. So, what I would first encourage you to do if you're sort of in this waiting period is just, like, take a piece of paper and get everything on a piece of paper that you're like, I want this stuff to get done." And then go through and, like, put stars next to the things that absolutely cannot get left. Like, these things have to be done before this baby comes, and get those things done. The rest of them, just, like, put in priority or like, I like to triage my to-do list. So there's, like, high urgency, like, this has gotta happen, and then there's, like, I would like, this is kind of medium priority, I would really like this to happen, and then there's low priority, like, if it gets done, it gets done, but if not, it's fine. It can wait. It's not the end of the world. So go ahead and make that list for yourself. Do the really high urgency things, and then be okay with having things that are basically keeping you busy, but if they don't get done, if your baby comes, that's fine. So, because I think you made a good point, Sarah, that like you worked up until your other labors, but your high urgency things were done, right?
Hmm.
So you basically just had like a running task list of things to keep you distracted, which actually can be really helpful. So when you're having a home birth, so even if you're not working, right, if you're just at home preparing for a home birth, there are some high urgency things that you need to do, right? You need to make sure like you've got your birth supplies. So if you have a home birth midwife, most likely around the time of your home visit, they'll bring you like a tub or a kit or something with birth supplies that they need so that if you have a baby and they show up, it's already there. So that may just be like Chuck's pads. It could be medications if they have like Pitocin or other anti-hemorrhage meds. It could be like gloves and a Doppler, anything like that that they might need during your labor. Usually they will just leave with you or they'll ask you to buy the kit, get the kit from a website or whatever. So I would just make sure you have that and make sure you have towels. Those are the two things that matter the most. You need to have a baby, even by yourself with nobody around, you need towels. That's pretty much it. Like your baby needs you and they need warmth and they're really slippery. So like make sure you got towels. But after that, think about the things that are going to make you feel comfortable in your birth space. So do you have multiple sets of sheets in case you birth on your bed and it makes a big mess, or a mattress protector? Do you have, things that are comforting to you? Maybe you have birth affirmations or candles or whatever. Honestly, like when it comes down to it, nobody is looking at the twinkle lights in their birth affirmations when they're in labor. Sorry to break it to you. Maybe if you have a long early labor, this is good to kind of like check out. But honestly, I would really prioritize functionality of your birth space over aesthetic. So if you were to go into labor tonight, Sarah, do you have everything in your room, or at least know where everything is to tell your husband that you're gonna need once the baby's born? So like those first couple days when you are not getting out of your bed, do you have the stuff that you need nearby, or can you at least tell Jeff where they are, right?
Nope.
You're shaking your head, no? Like truly, before your baby's born, I think that you're going to need to do that, because that way you feel like, all right, if I dropped everything right now and had a baby, do I have what I need to have a baby? At the very least, are we going to be safe, warm, and comfortable?
Yeah. Funny story. I actually thought that we had newborn and size 1 diapers like left over from Isaac. And went through the whole nursery the other day and I was like sorting through everything. We have size 3, and then we have 1 pack of size 4, and then size 6. And I was like, okay, like I need to get diapers. Like it's like little things like that. And it's like, oh, like, sure, like I guess we could like put a wrap around them or like a blanket and Jeff can run out and like go get diapers or something. But it's like, I was like, how do we not have diapers? Like,
Yeah.
I'm like not very far along, but I'm far enough along that like, yes, the baby could come.
Yeah. Right. I mean, you're
like,
basically full term. Yeah.
And I was like, how do we not have diapers? But it's like, it's like, okay, is it third baby thing? Because with Rosie, our first, we had packs of diapers like all lined up in the nursery. We had the crib, like we had like everything like all laid out and set up. I want to say at like 33 weeks or 35 weeks or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like we were like ready for stuff. We had already had our shower and like, all of the baby stuff and the stroller. Like I think we had the stroller set up. We had it clipped into the car. We were so much more, oh, like it's going to happen. And now I'm like, you know what? Like third baby, we know what to do. Like what's the worst that could happen? Like you wrap it, like you said, like towels, you wrap it in a blanket, you put it on your chest. What more do you need? And I think it is like that list of stuff that it kind of narrows down. And like I was listening to another podcast and the dad was kind of like, what do we need to actually bring to the hospital? They have stuff that you need. And like, why are people packing these like huge suitcases?
Yeah.
And, like I always say, like comfort items are so key. Like if there's a specific pillow that you were like, yes, I cannot leave home without, have that pillow. If there's this, like I just washed this one blanket that I absolutely love. It's like super fuzzy. It's orange. Like I know that I'm going to want that.
Yep.
And like that is a comfort item for me. So like I tell clients that too. Like it's like, hey, like if there's something, how you were talking about priorities and like getting stuff done, if there is like certain items that like I have to have this type of water bottle or like I have to have this one blanket. Maybe you do like the affirmation cards or there's something that like you can hold or just like squeeze a comb. Like I know a lot of people like the comb.
Yeah.
Like things like that. Like if it's like this is gonna bring me comfort,
Mhm.
I think that is like so high on priority, whether you're a home or hospital, like whatever it is, over anything else that's like listed on these hospital bag lists or home birth
Right.
prep lists. Like,
Yeah. So I'll tell you what I did, and this is probably what I would suggest is I would imagine, Sarah, what you want in labor and then for the first 3 days. So because we live in a very fast-paced world where we can like Amazon Prime stuff, right? If we need it. But sometimes it takes like 3 days, right? It's not always next day or 2-day shipping, or maybe they don't have it in stock somewhere. So what I did is I prepped my bed in case I birthed on my bed. So I made sure I had like a mattress protector and I put a double set of protector and sheets on my bed. That way we could just strip it and we're not having to make the bed after birth and whatever. And then I also had a couple of things for my birth that I knew I would potentially need or want. So like I had my birth ball blown up. I had a peanut ball already blown up. This is a big thing that I suggest to everybody for home birth is if you imagine yourself laboring in a specific bra or a specific robe or specific outfit, have that outfit and a backup outfit clean, folded, ready to go on top of wherever your birth stuff is so that when it's kind of like exciting, like, oh, okay, I'm in labor, I can put on like my labor clothes, especially if you're going to have photos like you are, Sarah, like you might be like, well, I don't want to be like butt naked. I want to wear this comfortable nursing bra or whatever, and then have a second set that of whatever you want to wear right after birth
mm,
because you're going to be wearing, probably Depends or like a pad or whatever, but you're also going to want something that's easy to nurse in. You might not want to be like completely naked, especially if you have people coming into your birth space after the baby's born. And you might want a really cozy robe, right? Or socks. I always make sure that my clients know to wear socks in postpartum because you're losing a lot of heat during birth and you really want to keep the warmth in order to heal quicker. So I always recommend having like cozy socks, a cozy robe, a couple of nursing bras that you really love or that are really comfortable, or maybe nursing tank tops or whatever. And then whatever postpartum supplies that you want to have immediately after birth, make sure you have those before the baby's born. So it might be ice packs. I don't personally like ice packs, but some people really want those things. And you would only need them in the first day or two. So it's going to kind of defeat the purpose if you have to order them. By the time they get here, you won't need them anymore. So have whatever you want in the first 2 days postpartum or 3 days postpartum already like set up on the back of your toilet. I personally specifically wanted this special brand of organic cotton disposable like diapers. So instead of like the Depends brand, I really like the Raelle brand. They're much softer and more comfortable and not irritating. And so I made sure like I had those stocked for 3 days. I had the pads that I wanted. I had like the Peri spray that I wanted. And that was really in a Peri bottle. And that's really all that I needed for postpartum. I just made sure that I had the things right next to my bed that I would want. So I had a little red light because I knew I'd be up during the night for feeds and I didn't want to turn on a big lamp. So I had a little red light on my nightstand, and then I had lots of burp cloths because I knew I would need those, nursing pads, wipes, extra diapers, and things that you might need during the night when your partner's asleep that you are not going to get out of bed for, because we should not be getting out of bed in the first couple of days, right? Unless we're going to the bathroom. And even then, a lot of times we should have somebody helping us with that. So I would just really, Sarah, think through what do I need for the first 3 days so that I'm not worrying about having to go out and get something or directing someone to go find something in my house, because that's just unnecessary stress that you could easily prepare for, right? Whatever, like you said, makes you feel comfortable and whatever you imagine needing. If you were to not leave your bed for 3 days, what would you need? And what would you need in labor? So that would be my practical, like preparing for your birth space. And then also just making sure at the very minimum you have a plan for nourishment. So during your birth, making sure that you have a plan, like a list. I love having people write a list of like when labor starts for their husbands. It's like when labor starts, make sure my special water bottle is full of electrolytes. Make sure the birth pool gets blown up. Make sure I have my comfortable blanket or whatever clean and nearby, ready for me. Text my birth team at XYZ point in labor. That way, they're not asking you questions and you feel like I don't have to direct him. He knows what to do. Have it in writing and stick it on your wall for real. Like, men forget. And I don't say that to be like, men don't know what to do. But they really, when they see their wife in labor, they're like, oh gosh, like, how do I help? What do I do? And they can sometimes get flustered. So having it written out is really helpful. And that way, everybody's on the same page. And obviously, you and your birth team should be on the same page too. But if not, before you go into labor, make sure you guys have talked about what you want for your labor so that you're not trying to direct people when they get there, because that will definitely take you out of the labor brain, right? So yeah, that plan for nourishment during labor and also plan for nourishment after. So know what your first meal is going to be for postpartum. You need something warm and nourishing, like a soup or a stew. I made some single serve soups, and I put on that labor checklist, when I start labor, pull this specific soup out of the freezer and let it thaw so that as soon as the baby's born, somebody can just throw it in a pot and bring it to me. Done. Nobody has to think, nobody has to cook, but I have something nourishing that's not like Whataburger at 3 a.m, right? That's not what we want to be eating after birth, and we definitely don't want to just not eat. So the difference, between being home and being in a hospital is you don't have all of this on-demand care, right? You have to think ahead for those things. So definitely have your first post-birth meal, your tea, your broth, whatever, ready, and then have a plan either for meals prepped in your freezer for the first week, or a plan for a meal train, somebody that's going to come over and make you food, those things. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers it for how to physically prepare. Really just think about those first 3 days.
Yeah, I think there's so much to it that, you don't really think about. And like you said, when you're at the hospital, it's all these things are kind of be in place, like the hospital bed. You aren't even in the same room that you are going to be in for postpartum at the hospital. So if there's quote unquote a mess, you're leaving and you're going somewhere else, but you only have one bed in your bedroom. So definitely having those sheets on hand, so many of the home births that I've been to, and now even planning for this one, it is okay, what do we need to really think about logistically? Because yes, you're most likely going to have, a doula, a midwife, some sort of birth team around you that is capable of doing these things, but you need to be preparing and prepping these things. They're not necessarily maybe you said, your midwife is coming over and leaving a bucket of supplies and stuff that they're going to need, but they're not prepping the space and setting it up how you are going to need it or want it, or, have it those first 3 days, like you were saying.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and so it really is, when you're at the hospital, I was saying, diapers, for example, they give you a pack of diapers, a
Right.
thermometer, they supply that for you. But when you're at home, towels, washcloths, little things like that, you're not thinking of as, stuff that you quote unquote need to be packing. It is. And then like you said too, that first initial outfit or something. I have that planned out. We just did all of our laundry, and I'm I know this is my comfiest, sleepwear, and it's gonna be easy to nurse in. So I'm gonna want to get all comfy and cozy in this outfit afterwards. And
Mhm.
you can shower right afterwards if you want to, even, or clean yourself up. You are home, and if you are unmedicated at home, you can be, jumping right into the shower, or having somebody assist you into the bathroom or whatever it might be. And so I think logistically thinking those things out, and you don't have to, pack all your toiletries because you are home, but maybe there is a chapstick or something that you really like that you want to put on your bedside
Yep.
because you don't want to get up to go get it, and it's just right there so you don't have to leave your bed. So minimizing those things, put a brush in there, put
Yeah.
chapstick, even basic things like that necessarily might be somewhere else in your house,
Mhm.
having it easily accessible, like you said, just right by you.
Yep. Also, another thing was tinctures or herbs or medication because my husband cannot find anything like that in our house. I'm like, I need this. And he's like, where's that? And I'm like, in the medicine cabinet, but where? And I'm like, oh my gosh. So having like, I personally love Wish Garden tinctures like After Ease and Rebalance and the postpartum baby blues, like things like that. If you're like, I'm intending to use these right after birth or in the first couple of hours, maybe it's even just like ibuprofen. You're like, I want ibuprofen for after pains, or I'm going to be really sore. I want to take some arnica. Like just have a little basket of all your supplements right on your bedside so that
Yeah.
nobody has to go digging for them.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think, obviously there's like so much to unpack, like when it comes to home birth or birth in general. And, like there's so much that we can do to prepare and really get ready and whatnot. But is there anything that you would, really want to instill on somebody that is for sure, like going down this path, getting ready, preparing for their home birth, they're in those final weeks, and you just want to make sure like they hear that one thing, or that they're aware of something that you really instill like in your clients and you want them to know and be aware of?
I would say you cannot think your way into labor. Like you got to get out of your head. And there's this amazing shift that happens when people finally are just like, all right, whatever, the baby's not coming. Like the baby's not coming for another 2 weeks. And then the next day they go into labor. But you can't just tell yourself that. You really have to believe it. And so, like Sarah, I would tell you when you're at this like coming up on 37-week mark, as you are right now, I would say like, just really tell yourself and believe like, I'm not having this baby. If I do, it's cool. Like my high urgency things are done, but I'm not having this baby until 40 weeks. And then maybe you will, maybe you won't. And that's okay. But you have to stop thinking so hard about when you're going to go into labor in order for your body to actually go into labor. You can't watch it. It does not like to be watched. So that's what I would say is you cannot think your way into labor.
Yeah, it's almost like how they say like with relationships and stuff, like when you're looking for one, or like when you're like desperately like seeking somebody, like it's not going to happen. Then all of a sudden you're
Yep.
like, I'm done, like whatever. I
Yeah.
don't need anybody.
Yeah. And
And
it's
then
so
all of a sudden
annoying.
like all of a sudden it's like, oh, here they are.
I hear the same thing a lot with pregnancy, like people who are having trouble conceiving. Like,
Yes.
oh, well, if you just stop expecting or stop trying, then you get pregnant. And as annoying as that is, and like I would never say that to a woman ever who's having a hard time conceiving, but there is a science to it, and it is that releasing of control. It really is changing something in your brain to where it's like putting your body at a more relaxed state. You're not so focused on it and stressing about it that it actually can impact your hormones and it can impact everything else. So, not that I would ever say that to someone about conceiving, but I will say it about labor. Like, once you stop thinking about it, it'll happen, right? Like, just take a step back,
Yeah.
relax, get all your big things done, and then just shift that like from doing to allowing. And then your baby's not going to stay in there forever. Like, it's literally not possible. They're going to be born, right? So, what's a few more days, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it really is like releasing that expectation, like releasing, surrendering and getting into that flow of things. Because yeah, like you said, I mean, even like this time around, like our third pregnancy was the longest that we had tried to conceive. And then eventually, like I was about to go through blood work. I was about to like go through all this testing. And I just said, you know what? Let's just like give it a few more months. If it happens, it happens. If not, then like maybe we're just not meant to have a third kid, or like maybe it's just not meant to happen right now. And sure enough, it was like that month or like 2 months later, we got pregnant. And I was like, what in the world? Like,
The
and
same thing happened for me.
I was in
Wow.
disbelief. I was like, there's no way, like, it was quote unquote that easy. But it's like, okay, no, we were trying for, I want to say like 2 years. Like,
Yeah.
we had started to say, like, yeah, like this timeline, like if we had another one, then like our youngest would be, 2. So let's go. And now he's gonna be almost 4. So
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's anything easy about it, but it is powerful for sure when you're able to really like let go of those expectations.
yeah. Yeah, and like you said, it's like you never wanna, like, tell somebody, like, "Oh, like, it's divine timing, and, like, it will happen when it's meant to," or,
Yeah.
everything happens for a reason, but
Yeah. And I do firmly believe those things, but not everybody does.
Yeah.
And so, you got to be careful with that. But I do think that everything happens for a reason. I think that you're going
Yeah.
to be really, really glad that your youngest is 4 almost when you have a newborn. Because look at how like
Oh,
self-sufficient he
yes.
is, That's there's blessings and there's pros and cons to like all of it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah, it
going
doesn't
through
make it
it,
easier.
right. Yeah, going through it, I was like, this is like, why isn't this happening? And now it's like, this is perfect. Like this is going to
Yeah.
be such a good, age gap and setup, and especially like having 3.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, and think about even your birth and postpartum team. We would not be there. You wouldn't have
oh
even
yeah.
us, right? Like
Yeah.
that is like a reason you should have waited 2 more years to have a baby.
Yeah.
But just to show that like
It would have
there's
been a lot cheaper 2 years ago.
yeah, but just like so much is falling
Oh,
into place.
yes.
And it's just
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm
love
so
it.
excited, yeah. I think, I'm excited to have you as one of the doulas and everybody else that's come in, and I wanna have a little party, and
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
gonna
want
be
it to
so
go
fun.
too fast, but
Yeah, love it.
cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Let us know. I know you mentioned your podcast and, your business and everything like that, but let us know like where you hang out, where we can find you, what you currently have going on.
Yeah, definitely go listen to the podcast. It's called Holistic Pregnancy, and we talk about everything from fertility through postpartum and early motherhood, but it's really with a focus around pregnancy and birth if you want to live a more holistic lifestyle in those areas. And then I'm over on Instagram at Nested and Nourished, and my website is the same, nestednourished.com. I'm a little bit less active than I'd like to be on Instagram, but my DMs are always open. So I really love talking to you guys like in real life. If you will just like shoot me a message anytime, I'm happy to chat.
Very cool. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, mamas, so much for listening. Remember, you are a rock star. I believe in you. Let's doula this. Let's crank it up a notch and let's kick it into high gear together. Hit that subscribe button, share this episode with a friend, message me, email me, call me, beat me. You know how to reach me. We're doing this, mamas. I am so excited to catch you here next week. This is your one-stop go-to place for helping you find the resources you need to make the best choices for you and your family during pregnancy, birth, and most importantly, postpartum. See you later, mamas.